Welcome back to another episode of the Even Your Dynasty Show. I have my resident draft expert, Ricky, joining me today. What's going on, man? Today, we're going to talk about yesterday. The Giants drafted James Tibbs III with their first-round pick number 13. He's an outfielder, kind of a power hit tool guy. Seems to be his calling card. Left-hander, plays kind of left field. Sounds like he's played some first base in the past. Maybe they'll end up having to DH him. Who knows? It seems like he's a little bit questionable on the where he's going to play down the road and where he'll stick. But the bat and the hit tool seems to be legit. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. First off, welcome everybody if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on Spotify, Even Your Dynasty Show on both of those. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. We're going to be pumping out a little bit this week. It's going to be less than normal because I am on vacation right now. Going to be hitting the golf course here in a couple hours. So, going to enjoy that. But I'm going to kick it over to Ricky. He's going to talk a little bit about Tibbs. We'll run through his numbers from last year, kind of what we think of the pick as a whole, and go from there.
Yeah, I'm super excited about the Tibbs selection. He's one of the guys that I wanted out of this draft that I felt like could reasonably fall to the Giants. You know, Nick Kurtz was one of those other guys we really wanted. Ended up going way higher than we expected. But Tibbs is one of those guys I wanted for sure. 28 home runs last year at Florida State in only about 50, 60 games. Tons of power. He's improved every year at Florida State over the last 3 years. Very good zone recognition. He's lowered his Ks down every single year, takes a ton of walks along with that power. They did have a short porch there at Florida State. So, you know, some people may say that his power numbers could be inflated a little bit, but he's shown improvement in the power department every year down there as well. Super MLB ready bat, exactly what we needed. Somebody that can come up possibly as early as, you know, mid-season next year, depending on how he does in the minor leagues. And if not, probably early 2026. So that could be a huge help to the Giants. You know, we have Eldridge down in the minors as well, obviously, but he's somebody to expect to, you know, not come up till a little bit later, younger high school guy. So Tibbs should definitely help out in the short term, and then eventually in the long term, you know, you can move him from right or left over to first, or you can DH him. So super excited about the pick.
Yeah, I am too. I know one of the big things, and this is just a philosophical thing you and I had talked about in recent videos, is we wanted to see a college bat this season, and preferably somebody that could move. We felt can move pretty quick and might be able to contribute sooner than later. But it just didn't seem like the time to take another, project. We'll call it. I mean, a guy like Caminiti who, yes, has pretty good upside, but it would have been probably 3-4 years minimum until we might have seen him, unless he just is, some insane talent that happened to be more polished than we all thought. But it just seemed like the right thing for the team to do at this time, and where they currently are. Looking at Tibbs' numbers over the last few years, I think he redshirted his freshman year, but as a redshirt freshman, hit 300 with 10 home runs. His sophomore year, he hit 339 with 17 home runs, and these are 56 and 54 games. Then he went to the Cape Cod League with the Wooden Bats, hit 6 home runs, 303 with an 862 OPS. So he handled the Wooden Bats fine. Last season really broke out in 66 games. 320 plate appearances. So, I mean, it's kind of closer, I guess, to a half of a season when you look at the plate appearance total. But 28 home runs. And then the big thing was, to me, 58 walks and only 37 strikeouts. So, I mean, he's got great discipline. He's got great, I mean, you look at his, all his kind of exit velocity in college, 90th on, or 77th on max, Zone swing percentage, he was 97th percentile. Outside zone, his chase rate, basically, he's 80th percentile. He was 98th percentile on walk to strikeout ratio. I mean, this is a very polished hitter. I mean, some scouts were talking about him as possibly the most major league ready bat in the draft. So I think that's exciting. I mean, yes, does he have the ceiling that some of these other guys have? Probably not, just because the athletic profile isn't
Yeah.
what some of these other guys. I mean, I was kind of hoping Montgomery might fall that one more pick, just because it would have been nice to get kind of a bit of an athletic, guy that doesn't have necessarily as much of the swing and miss issues that Bishop had. But I really like the Tibbs pick. He was definitely on my list.
Yeah, for sure. I honestly like it too, even though he doesn't have the highest ceiling. What I do like is the Giants normally do try to go for those higher ceiling guys with a little bit, higher chase numbers. And it's kind of nice to get somebody that you feel like is going to be pretty safe bet. I don't usually like drafting that way, but with the position the Giants are currently in, they can absolutely use somebody that can just fill in right away almost and plug a hole in the outfield and add a little bit of power. I really like his swing too. He's very short and compact to the ball.
Mhm.
You don't that's where the low chase numbers come in, and then obviously his plate awareness. So I like it a lot. As you mentioned with Hunter Bishop, he's a guy you have to worry about a lot more with the higher
Yeah.
chase numbers, and the Giants have struggled with that year after year, and you know it could be due to their development and some of the coaching down in the lower levels. We're not really sure, but ultimately, I think this is a guy that you won't really have to worry about those things as much with, as long as they don't screw with his swing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing that I saw out of him that's really promising is, the one of the concerns I saw on whether Giants Twitter, other mediums yesterday was, a lot of people are worried about the lefty power bat in Oracle Park. And I get it. I mean, not a lot of people have had a ton of success there outside of, one Barry Lamar Bonds. But, most people like don't realize how many premium lefty power bats have the Giants ever even really had in Oracle other than Bonds. I mean, we've had with a 60 grade power with a 55 grade hit tool, we haven't had many of those. We've had Belt, maybe. You had like a year of Huff. I mean, yeah, he played there like 3 years, but really only one. He was like in the very end of his prime. I mean,
Yeah.
there just really haven't been many. And oh, sorry,
Oh,
Wi-Fi. Uh, too much of his power played on the gaps, where it felt like it was right center to left center was his big power zone. He didn't
mhm.
he didn't pull a lot of balls down the lines or anything like that. Tibbs is not like he doesn't have that issue. Like he will absolutely cover the inner half of the plate and put one in the cove if you put it in there on him. So,
Yeah.
and I did see a little bit of power the opposite way, but it does seem like a lot of it's to his pull side. But to me, like that's how you have to be successful to be a lefty power hitter in Oracle. You need to be able to play it. You either need to be able to turn on one and put it in, like, because it is pretty short porch to right. It's just the tall wall. But like you either need to turn on it and be able to get it over there, or you need to be able to, use the entire field and go to left field with the ball, which that's kind of where Eldridge, I think, has an advantage, is like he can do both. Like he can go foul pole to foul pole. That's part of why I'm so excited about him. But
Yeah.
Tibbs, like his ability to pull a ball, and that's why guys like Muncy has never had problems hitting an Oracle, because he will just go wherever it's pitched, and if you go inside, I mean he hit a few into the cove. So I think that's a good pickup. I'll ask you what you think his comp was. I know I had people bringing up Michael Conforto almost like that is a negative, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But I don't know if you have a comp that you see with him.
I've been trying to think of one other than what yours was that we already
Yeah.
talked about. I mean, that's honestly probably the closest one I can think of, both from a defensive perspective and, because Conforto is not the greatest athlete, but just the short, compact swing, a little bit of uppercut to him. When he's going right, they are very similar in their swing paths, and how quick they are on those inside fastballs, and that's kind of part of why I'm not as overly concerned as others are about him potentially facing lefties and or maybe having to be platooned in the future. I don't really have as many of those concerns because I think we just need to see more before we're that worried about that because his swing, I don't see any reason why he can't handle inside fastballs from lefties up and in even. And that is something that,
Mhm.
you do see a lot of lefties struggle with from time to time. We saw it with Jock swinging through high fastballs all the time. Um,
Yeah.
most lefties, their happy zone is, low and in so they can golf them out, but I
Yeah.
don't really see that with Tibbs. So that's why me personally, I have to see more before I start being concerned with his matchups versus lefties.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing that people overrate to an extent is when you're a left-hander, if you can hit, if you can produce like a 700 OPS against lefties, like not even like elite or anything, but like at least be high sixes, low sevens in that range where you're just like a playable bat. The power is still going to be a threat at that point, and because at any point he could just run into one, but it, like if you're just doing that, left-handers only make up like less than 30% of pitchers. So yeah, it can get amplified or kind of put under the magnifying glass in a late inning situation. And maybe if you have a really good guy with a right, we make jokes about Austin Slater, but like if you had like an Austin Slater type and you had like a critical late inning about, yeah, maybe you pinch hit for the guy at some point, like just to play the matchups. But I don't think he's a guy that's going to need to sit like all the time against lefties unless he shows up to pro ball and just flat out can't hit him. But again, even if you can't, like you're on the strong side of the platoon, which gets you to like a Mike Yastrzemski where yeah, Yaz plays the strong side where he's playing most of the time, and like a lot of people and you and I included have kind of like we're tired of the platooning, but it's like if you could get kind of what Yaz did, what 2020, 2021, I can't remember how many home runs he hit in 2022, but I think it was like in the mid 20s or like low to mid
Mhm.
20s. If you could get that but like with less swing and miss, like it's still not a bad pick in my opinion. Like
No.
if you get a 270 average to go with 25 home runs, like are any of us really going to complain about that production? So I do like the Conforto comp though. I think from like you said, a physical standpoint, athleticism, like he's not a great athlete. He's just kind of he's well a good plate discipline and good little bit of uppercut, some nice power. I do think it's a good comp. A lot of people I did see make that sound like it was some big negative. In my comments back were, well, if you're getting Conforto with the Mets, like if you're getting that version of Michael Conforto, that's a really good player because I think people forget that he averaged almost 30 home runs a year for a 3-year stretch while in New York
Mhm.
and had a lot of big hits and and he was a legit middle of the order bat. So, um, that's a difference maker. So and not, I think Dan said it yesterday. It's like not every first round pick is going to be a star. Sometimes you're just trying to hit a really just good player.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, going back to Conforto, I was looking at his college numbers and his best season from a power production standpoint, he had half the amount of homers that Tibbs just had in his senior or his this last year at Florida State. And
Oh,
Conforto is a guy you consider with power. I mean, he's hit 30 bombs in the big leagues. Like, so I don't think we necessarily have to cap Tibbs out as a,
mhm.
25 home run guy at best. I mean, he's not a huge dude, but the ball does explode off his bat, especially when you throw up and in it on him. So I don't think we need to worry about that too much with him. And then another comparison, you're going back to, a guy like Lamont Wade,
Mhm.
hitting against lefties. They almost exclusively only allowed him to hit against righties. And then this year you're seeing it a little bit more often because he's had such a great year getting on base. But you look
Yeah,
at his numbers, and in a really small sample size, only 16 games, he's hitting for a pretty good average against lefties, but you're not seeing him hit for any power whatsoever. But
yeah,
I mean, if you can just get on base like Tibbs can, he has very
yeah,
high on base percentage, very low strikeout numbers. Um, that can play 100%. And this is a team that just desperately needs to find power bats and guys that can come up quick. So we'll get into the draft a little bit later on, but I would not be surprised to see them in the fourth and fifth rounds go out another couple more college bats. Probably some infielders, some more
yeah.
athletic guys this time around, but you could definitely see that because they went that way last year with, Maui Ahuna pretty early on. They went Cole Foster. So these are guys that you expect to be ready quickly, and those guys haven't produced a ton, but I definitely think you could see them go that direction further on into today.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Tell me if there's any, because I'm gonna be honest. I focus for the MLB draft. I've always been I don't go as deep like I do like with like NFL or anything like that, looking at prospects and stuff like that. Um, because there's just a lot with the MLB when you get the prep guys and then you get the and the college guys, and then the college guys that may or may not go back to school. And I mean, it just turns into a whole mess. So I always kind of wait till after they get guys and see just kind of what they did draft. Do you have any
Mhm.
people in particular in the later rounds that you're kind of hoping for or looking at, or is it just more kind of like you were talking about, like you want more, whether it's college middle infielders or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm just looking more at like college middle infielders, just because, like I said, we're not really seeing a ton out of Foster and Huna yet, and you can never have enough shortstops when it comes to the draft because then you can just move them around elsewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the Giants luckily do have a couple solid middle infielders in Eugene right now, but I would definitely look that direction. There are a couple pretty solid prep catchers that could fall to the Giants in the fourth and fifth rounds that they
Okay.
could look at. I know it's not the biggest need, but like I've mentioned before, the Giants really do need some depth there. I mean, a college catcher would honestly probably be a little bit better just so you have a little bit of insurance behind
Yeah.
Bailey. So I'd like to see that. I still do expect them to go heavy on high school arms when we get to the later rounds a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, so that's
Which is
kind of
always
where I'm
tough
at.
because a lot of those guys will end up they'll just end up going to school, which
Yeah.
is tough. But yeah, I mean, I think a catcher would be smart, just as like you said, insurance for Bailey. Sugastay is not really doing anything in Richmond. He's had a pretty poor season. Perez he needs development. He's improved behind the plate from what I've seen this season in Eugene, but he definitely needs time. And that can't be your only guy. Like that's the other part of that is like you can't just have him and then Sable, who's like not really a catcher in my opinion, but they're gonna keep playing him there, it seems like. So it's just insulating yourself a little bit and giving yourself some, protection in the event that something does happen to Bailey, you know. So well, I mean, that's all I really have for this one. I know we're gonna hop into the minor league one here shortly, but
Yeah, I think a little bit later on we'll start getting into some of their other picks as they start coming through. The draft is just starting right now, so here in the next, I don't know, half hour to an hour or so, we should have a
a
little
little
bit
bit of
more
info.
action for the Giants draft after the
Yeah,
second and third round selections got taken away from the Snell and Chapman signings.
yeah. Yeah, we'll see how the Giants' second and third round picks do in the second half here of the season.
Yeah.
That's how we'll have to kind of look at that. But all right, well, everyone, that's it for this one. Tomorrow, you guys are going to see, we will be dropping the minor league video for tomorrow. We are managing to get the update. I do not know if we're going to do a live show later in the week. Unfortunately, the internet connection where I'm at may or may not be sufficient enough to do that. So I don't want to start one and then it just be like a totally terrible experience for everyone. So we may or may not end up doing the live. We'll see. But other than that, catch you all next time.